As we start the Weather and National Airspace System course, the first thing, of course, is for you to do is go to your Blackboard, log in, and read over the Syllabus Agreement. That's just the agreement between you and I. What you need to do to pass the course and what I need to do as well, my responsibilities. So it's put underneath an assignment, and you can download the document, print it, read it, or you can just read it online, but I need you to sign it fairly quickly. That also registers you as being a part of the class as well. So in this video here, much of the classroom I would like to be able to do it online. However, I'm going to be available in office hours, so if you have a question, you don't quite understand the video or what I'm trying to say here, certainly come and contact me somehow. Either make an appointment to come out here and meet me, and we can talk together, or send me a text or an email. You've got my personal phone number, so I'm available to do that. This is not a replacement for our interaction. But it will make the course available to some who can't meet during the day, because unfortunately I have to schedule this during the daytime, and if you're working during the day, you can in the evening go and check these lessons out. This is a part of the 8-week mini-mester, and then following this there'll be another 8-week mini-mester covering the regulations. So what we're going to cover here is weather and the National Airspace System. So as we prepare, that's what we're doing here. We're getting a technical certificate in small UAS pilot and command. As we're preparing to be a professional drone pilot, it means that we need to be prepared for mission assignments, right? How can you accept a mission? There's things you need to know about. You can fly a drone, put up to anybody can go downtown, buy a drone from Walmart and be fairly competent in drone and flying it, but how do you know that the location is legal? How do you know the weather is good enough to complete the assignment? You're going to be responsible for flying your drone. Bad weather flying risks the damage or destruction to the drone. If you fly your own drone into bad weather and it's destroyed, well, then you suffer the consequences. But if you're working for somebody and you fly their drone into bad weather and it destroys the drone, then there are other consequences that may affect your ability to support yourself. So, and of course, your assignment may involve controlled airspace, which we need to be aware of that as well. The FAA in the written exam wants to know that you are knowledgeable enough in the weather situation and the airspace in order to safely fly your drone. So there are questions. There is going to be a quiz at the end of each one of these things. You can do it online. Again, if that's not your thing, you want me to print you out a copy of it, you have to come in and get it. And I will grade paper copies if that's what you would prefer to do. Or you can do it online. Also, during this course, we'll talk about waivers as well, because there are certain situations where you may need to obtain a waiver. All right, we'll get right into it now. You may be asking, why is this in one course, weather and the National Airspace System? Well, they're sort of related. These two subjects are related because the remote pilot need to operate within awareness of the operating environment. Weather and controlled airspace will necessarily restrict operations occasionally. So like I said, each episode is going to contain a quiz that needs to be completed before the next class. Episode 2 quiz needs to be completed before Episode 2 class, so we can discuss the questions that you may have missed as well. Questions do come from the FAA knowledge exam for Part 107 small UAS rating. Questions on the National Airspace System are about 15%, up to 50% of the actual exam, and aviation weather questions are about the same percentage of questions going to be on that. Remember, the test is 60 questions. You got 2 hours, I believe, to complete the test. 60 questions, multiple choice. Purpose of the course, again, is for each of us to be evaluated in preparation for the exam. Your success will depend on your own efforts in reading through the material, researching answers to the quizzes, and your curiosity about the subject matter. If you're not curious about the subject matter, this is going to be very dry and probably a little bit difficult. So develop some curiosity about the weather. Weather is a issue that affects us all. It's just a matter of our common everyday living, really. And the National Airspace System, that's a little more esoteric. We don't really think about that in our normal lives, but you'll need to develop that skill and that desire as we move into this course. So the remote pilot certificate with this UAS rating will allow operations within the National Airspace System, so we need to be aware of the airspace system. There are two different categories of airspace. There's regulatory and non-regulatory. Regulatory airspace includes these classes as you see here. We got B, Class B airspace, which big airports basically. Class C, D, and E. Class A is regulatory, but we're not going to fly at 18,000 feet above sea level, but still. Then there's non-regulatory airspace would be Class G, military operating areas, warning areas, alert areas, and controlled firing areas. Prohibited areas and restricted areas are require permission as well to fly in. So basically regulatory airspace is airspace that requires permission to operate within that airspace. Now, Class G airspace is referred to uncontrolled airspace. Much of our flying will be done in Class G airspace. Permission is not required, although, of course, communication-related air traffic may enhance safety when you're able to do that. All UAS operating rules still apply. No higher than 400 feet, no faster than 100 mile an hour, all of those other things as well. But how do we know where the controlled airspace starts? Of course, we look at the chart supplement as one way to do it, which gives us all this information. Or, of course, looking at the chart in general, the sectional charts will, of course, tell you that as well. So you can go to the chart supplement US to find out a lot of information about the airport, but the easiest way, of course, is to look at a sectional chart as well. And if you happen to buy a sectional chart, or if you download a sectional chart, there's a legend on the side that gives explanations of all these different places, all these markings on the chart. But also, there's this section here that gives you the airspace markings as well. Specifically, B, C, D, E. So the symbology is right there on the chart. The interesting thing about the actual FAA written test is you'll be provided with a testing supplement that has this picture there. So if you come to a question about airspace, you can look it up. I'm not saying you don't need to know what these symbols mean and the colors and all that mean, but you should be very familiar with that. But when you get stuck on a question, you can go to that. Right? And you should have a copy of this testing supplement. I should have provided you one at the beginning of this class. If you don't have it, you can download them from the FAA website. FAA testing supplement for private pilot and also private pilot / UAV pilot. You can download that testing supplement. The one that I printed here, the college has printed for me, only uses the figures or diagrams that are related to drones. FYI. So here we have a memory tool to help us remember these airspaces, what they stand for. A, of course, is altitude. That's that high altitude sector. B is for big airports like Atlanta International, or the airspace that surrounds Atlanta International, or Chicago, New York area, San Francisco, those kind of airports. C is for larger airports like Chattanooga, and other airports that have air traffic controllers. Most of the time, maybe not full time, but it's big enough for commercial aircraft to go in and out of there. The D is for dialogue. That's smaller airports that still have a control tower, part-time usually, but you need to talk in there. E is everywhere else that's controlled. That's all this blue area out in here, right? And this blue area here, there's a couple little clues. Close to an airport, it's 700 feet. And below is Class E or Class G, and 1,200 feet and below, outside those airport areas, is Class G. Or the other way to look at it is 700 feet and above is Class E, or 1,200 feet further away from the airport and above is Class E. Here's an example of Class B for a big airport, Dallas-Fort Worth. You can see that this inner ring here is from the top of 11,000 feet and the bottom, well, it's surface. So from the surface up to 11,000 feet, that's controlled airspace. That's this inner ring here. You can sort of see the blue. It goes out a little bit like that, comes around like that. They've carved out areas so that other airports are accessible without having to call and get permission from Dallas-Fort Worth air traffic controllers. So that's what that's about. So there's all these different rings at different altitudes. Here's another one down here. You can see it's carved out here and there, and it goes around like that. It's almost gerrymandered. 11,000 feet, and it looks like a 5-0. So 5,000 feet to 11,000 feet, you can fly to this airport and that airport and not have to talk to these guys. Yep, this one's blue here. I can't read what that says, but that airport there is blue, so you have to talk to that control tower. Okay, so that should make some sense. A question that the FAA might ask is, okay, look at area or point 1. So this is figure, I can't remember what figure it is, but they would ask you to look for figure so-and-so, area 1, what is the bottom of controlled airspace in that area? So you look for this number here, and it says 4,000 feet, and the top is 10,000 feet. So that's basically telling you. Or they might say area number 5. Area number 5 is, yeah, and that's the fun thing about it, is sometimes you can't find the area. That's 8, 6. Oh, 5 right there in the middle. That's funny. Okay, so they may ask you what the bottom and the top of controlled airspace, Class B airspace at number 5. Well, it's surface to 11,000 feet, right? So that should make some sense. Okay, this is Class C airspace, magenta solid line. Norfolk, you can see that right by the airport, it's 4,000 feet top, surface from the ground to 4,000 feet is controlled airspace in this inner ring. This outer ring here, the question might be asked, is this in area 1, what's the controlled airspace? Well, you have to go all the way around this little area and you find it down here. Interesting. See, it's just that's all part of one section of the pie. So the bottom is 1,200 feet, the top is 4,000 feet. Typically the top will be about 4,000 feet for Class C airspace, and about a 10-mile ring. Cutouts for other airports like before. There's a huge cutout for this Oceana Naval Air Station here. This whole section here is cut out. All right. Then we have Class D airspace. Class D airspace, and you can go to the testing supplement to find a better picture of this. If you're online and perhaps the video is not coming out real clear. Testing supplement has all these, most of these charts. But anyway. Let's look for Denton Airport. I'll find it here in a second. Denton Airport, that's right there. Class D airspace is this dashed blue line all the way around it, right? That's dash blue line. It's about a 5-mile radius typically, and it goes up to 2,500 feet typically. So this is that one solid one that goes up. There's no layers to it, just straight up to typically 2,500 feet from the surface, 5-mile radius around the airport. It may have extensions for approaches, so it might be something that sticks out the side for an approach. This one doesn't have one. I'll perhaps find one later, but that's a possibility. The blue box here tells you that, right in there, tells you that the top of the airspace is 2,500 feet, in case you didn't know, above ground level. If it has a minus, it says it does not include 2,500 feet, so it's 2,499 feet, and below is controlled airspace. If it doesn't have a minus, it's 2,500 feet, and below is controlled airspace for Class D. Here's a Class E. That's all the airspace that's not that is controlled, but not necessarily associated with an airport. Sometimes it is, okay, so it gets a little bit confusing. We'll look for Mercer County Regional Airport way down here in the bottom, and you notice that within the magenta shaded area it's 700 feet, and out here it's 1,200 feet controlled airspace. So 700 feet and above is controlled airspace. Out here, 1,200 feet and above is all this area out here is Class E airspace. It's an odd kind of airspace, but that's really all you need to know at this point. It's odd because manned aircraft can fly in there without permission as long as the weather is VFR or better, which is odd. But as far as we're concerned, if there's a tower within this center area, 700 feet, let's say it's a 500-foot tower, you could not fly 400 feet above that because you'd be in controlled airspace. That'd be 900 feet, right, above ground level. So just so you're aware, but that's Class E. Again, the review here, memory tool, altitude, that's this high altitude stuff. Big is this upside down wedding cake around very large airports. That's how you can visualize it. C is crowded airports, Chattanooga, etc. D is dialogue, you got to talk to somebody. E is all this airspace out in here, right? Above 700 feet around an airport, above 1,200 feet otherwise. And this is helpful too. This video is going to be, or this picture is going to be helpful because this gives you the So this is a good little diagram. Not a bad idea and I think I've told you this before, take a picture with your cell phone of this diagram, and then it's just really helpful because over in the map symbol it tells you solid blue line for B, solid magenta for C, dash blue line for D, and E with an airport dash magenta, E without an airport it's a gradient magenta, and Class G is everywhere else. So it's just a good simple way to reference these markings on the chart. But like I said, you also have the testing supplement with the legend that you'll be able to look up to. Now these are these other special use airspaces as well. Prohibited and restricted, you need permission from the controlling agency to operate in there. So we're not generally speaking, we're not allowed to operate in prohibited areas, but still you can give it a try if you want to try to get permission. National security areas, warning areas, military operating areas, MOAs, alert areas, even military training routes, MTRs. You can operate in there, but you need to be careful. ADIZ, air defense, that's at the border, not allowed to be there. Temporary flight restrictions, no, you may not. They're not on the chart though. These other ones are on the chart, listed on the chart. Temporary flight restrictions are exactly that. They're temporary. They're so temporary that there isn't time for anybody to put it on the chart. So there are temporary flight restrictions that are more or less permanent. I believe there's a TFR at Disney World, and well, that's almost always, they're open every day as far as I know. All right, so that's good, and that's a good review to that. Obviously, questions. A lot of these answers will be in the Pilot Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. I do encourage you to read through that. That's a continuing thing for National Airspace System. It's got a whole section there, and it'd be excellent to read through that. Very helpful. Meanwhile, download the Atlanta sectional chart, go to the FAA site and do a little bit of digging around there, and there'll be a way to download I think it's a TIFF file, but it's a big enough, it's a pretty big file though. But anyway, you want to read through the legend and symbology. If you can't do that, if you don't have a good enough internet access, perhaps just use the testing supplement to look at the legend, make sure you understand what the figures mean. So next time we'll take another look at sectional charts, including some work on chart reading. Thanks.